I am going to show you behind the scenes of my track VINE VUDUU, some of the stuff I did in making this track, where I wanted to experiment with a couple of things. One, challenge myself as a producer in terms of making a genre of music I've always liked, and also just challenging myself as an MC, just being able to spit at that kind of double time pace. You can hear the original drums, they sound like this. Pretty much Jungle is entirely made based on like the almond break, which is a classic drum break. I decided to, rather than use the almond break, as great a sounding break as it is, I wanted to use a sample I had a license to. So this is a drum loop I used off of Beta Monkey Music. It's a drum groove I got from them. Feel free to check them out. Their stuff's royalty free. Pay for it, you can use it, as long as you don't just try and resell it as a sample pack like they've done. You're free to use their recordings in your own as you like. So I thought I'd challenge myself by trying to take a live sounding drum break, but flip it in a jungle context. I took this drum break, and you can see I've chopped it in different places, and I've chopped it at like irregular points. Basically, I put it to sync. The track is 171 BPM. I synced it to 171 so it fits, so you can hear it now. It's, you know, in the old school days where you get a lot of like the old school jungle producers, like they didn't have as accessible equipment that could chop quite as easily. They'd be using some expensive hardware that still wouldn't be able to have the same algorithm as we got here to chop it up. So that's one thing that's lucky, and it depends how you want to go with that. Some people want to capture that kind of warm sound you got from the old days, when you almost just recreating the same kind of old sounds, but just doing it now. I think that's wicked. I love that style of production. I grew up on a lot of those sounds, but I kind of wanted to use stuff that I've got accessible to me now and to me it was more about trying to reinterpret stuff than necessarily trying to pastiche it. Just a personal preference for me. That's kind of what I was doing. So I thought, well, rather than use the almond break all the time, why not not just use a different break and see if I can get a similar vibe and sound off of that. So that's what I did. I pitched it up 9 semitones, and you can hear it again. And that's got more of the tone you want. If I press play on this, you'll start to see the actual difference, the actual chops come in. Basically what I've done is I've also repitched certain parts of the chops as well, and added another instance where the drums are distorted, just to add more kind of vibe to it. People use the same sort of breaks for a reason. They've got a certain sound to them. It is important to work with good source material whenever you're making stuff, and that's often why the same breaks get used, like the almond break or, I don't know, funky drummer or whatever. They're good because they had a certain sound to them as the way they were recorded, and the actual drummer, they used at the time, had that certain shuffle and sound. That's why they get repeated. But as a producer, it is good to sometimes challenge yourself by deviating from the same sort of breaks and seeing what you can recreate. It improves your abilities as I think, sound designer, and just as a general producer, just trying to take a different break and trying to see if you can maybe recreate a similar sound with that break. And it's never going to be exactly the same, and that's not the goal, to be exactly the same. You want to be different, but challenging yourself to try and recreate it will help you come to some other ideas that are useful. And you hear that burp. This is actually one of those things that would be easier to actually recreate on older equipment, but this is me working with Serato Sample, and all it is just I took one of the drums, resampled it, time stretched it so it has that kind of warped sound to it. This is it, its original pace. and then I basically resampled it and then put it back into Serato samples, so it's just got this mad kind of stretch type vibe to it. It just adds some of those kind of, because what they used to do is like they'd take, say, Almond Break and just do these awesome sort of futuristic sounding distortions of the drums rather than just chopping it and playing out, and that's kind of what I experimented that here. So and all that is taking the same drum sample and just pitching it up. See, pitched up a key, up another key, up another key, well, not a key, pitched up a note, a semitone basically. We got some female vocals on there with a delay, and that's pitched up 4 semitones. So let's take that and take the sync off so you can hear what it originally sounds like. That's all it is. It's just that little section I got from a sample pack I bought. If you're watching this on YouTube, I will add a link to the sample pack I got from, because it's if you're looking for female vocals, it's decent for sample pack. That's all it is. That's kind of got more of a garagey slash, you know, jungle drum and bass type style. Added like a delay, a reverb, compression, and then like I suppose you call it a spreader, so it's got a wider sound to it. It sounds like this now. There's all sorts of ways you can go in that. I could have gone all, you know, deep house and dropped it at 11 semitones and just sounded like Satan's trying to get laid. You see, sexual Satan. Oh. And the pad sound is spread across left and right, and it's quite a deep pad. Again, it's just using the Alchemy synth, but it's also got a chord trigger on there, so it's just a sawtooth wave with just a little bit of, I believe, white noise added in. Other kind of main section I've got on there is, I mean, I call them guitar stabs, because basically it actually came from me taking a guitar sound and then with the guitar sound just sampling it back into Alchemy and then going wild with it and just creating this kind of speedy, you can hear it, it's all the MIDI notes. It's creating this far more kind of what was quite a basic sounding sample. And then with all of them together, all I took it from was just a guitar sound, and then I just developed that into something completely different by doing the old classic sampling and then resampling. The other point worth reckoning is the bass line I made on here as well. So I made this sub bass, and that, which is just a square wave, and we can take off some of the bits on there, take the filter off. It's just a simple square wave, drop down. Obviously played about with the envelope, and I've got both cut off, so this cut off and this cut off, modulating this envelope here. If I if I was playing around with that, if I wanted to make something a bit more experimental with the bass, that's actually would be pretty fun to deal with there too. There's an exciter I added to the bass. There's an EQ I did, so I just scaled all the way back, all the highs, so the only frequencies coming out are really sort of the really low bassy sort of. Take this off, you can hear more of those highs coming through, and that would mess with the mix, that would muddy the mix because there'd be too much going in the mid-range around about the 200 mark. We've got this EQ here, similar deal. I've actually taken off some of the because I wanted space on the track, I took off some of the real lows there and cut them off, because a lot of people can't really hear that anyway. So you're just taking up space in your track. If I take that off, it almost makes it have more of a grime type style bass line, which is cool. And then we have the vocals. I record on the same microphone you can hear here, so it's just a dynamic mic. Now, if I was probably doing something a bit more melodic, like singing or whatever, then perhaps I would do with a better mic, but it's raw recording on this mic. So let's go through how it sounds without the just recorded in dry.
The skin of the rig is a spiller of sentence, sends the bit of the minutes of fibers, a minute of finish, drill a particular spin your syllabus, flip ridiculous, whip your
So yeah, you can get a vibe of what that sounds like. There's plugins on the, I've bussed this as well, so all the vocals, because there's a number of vocals, there's you can hear with just like a gasp. And all it is just me taking a section of the vocal and putting it down into another channel, and then I put a reverse reverb on there. So if I hadn't reversed it, it would just sounds like this, which is, you know, nothing too special. But then if I actually put reverse on it, it creates a way more kind of, I suppose, foreboding sound that just feeds into the rest of the track. The actual main verse. So we've got EQ the hell out of it. So I've got EQs here just to take out a lot of the lows, because then once I've done that, I've added another EQ, and this is just taking, I could have probably done this on the same chain, but I did it on I did it on a separate one. Then I got a noise gate on top of that, just so it's cutting out when I'm quiet, so it's taking out any background noise. After that, I add a compressor, and it's a pretty heavy compressor. Then I've added another EQ just to beef it up a bit more, and this is where I'm taking more shape to the actual vocals. A de-esser, just to get rid of some of the sibilance, or whatever they call it, just the hissing, so I don't sound too much like a snake. I actually added an echo on there, so like again, just a tiny little bit of delay on there.
Heads up, run the sound. Done 9 times, but I gun you down with a snub star, break it down, dead your crowns.
Just a little bit. And one of the big things that make a difference actually is I've dealt with, I've created a thickened vocal reverb on here. I've also added, there's a filter envelope on there, just filtering out, and also done an output EQ. So I'm just boosting a few parts of the vocals. If I turn this off, we can hear, let's hear it without the reverb.
Hallelujah, compelled to praise and blasphemy. I start hell raising, leave you forsaken in Satan's basement. Left row tank with a spot job rating. Balls of J's to your mouth to taste and spicy meatballs.
Just makes it a bit more clear cut. But if I take the EQ out,
tucking boss and suffer MCs. Don't conflate your wells too rigid. Possible village before your digits. Wage a war, suffer a sentence. Lord executes with great vengeance. Trying to step with stock concepts. Can't accept my. Just
add. It's subtle, but it's just enough. And when you put it in line with the rest of the track, makes all the difference. Giving you a window into the behind the scenes. Let me know if you want to keep seeing videos like this, where I just do a bit of behind the scenes of how I put some of my tracks together, just so you got an idea as to what I'm doing and what I'm about. Let me know in the comments, and check me out on Lord Lav, whether it's on YouTube, Instagram, whatever. I'm everywhere to check out what I'm doing, and check out my song if you ain't checked it out already. Vine Voodoo, out now by the time you see this video. Take care, take it easy, enjoy, peace.